Hey, welcome to the North Idaho Experience. I am here with my partners, Dave and Eric. We got the three boys in the house today. Cheers to that, fellas.
No,
yeah, it is Pride Month. So,
cheers. No, just leave me alone.
Got some bourbon. Which one is this? I can't remember the name. It's something funny. It's the Bibbs and Tucker.
I'll grab it. See if I can.
Yeah. Bibb and Tucker.
Bibb and Tucker. That is donated to us by our dear friend Pat Krentz, who was just on the podcast, a local life flight medic. Well, he does some management now too, but good dude. So thank you, Pat. I have this whole vision today, so we're going to dive into a little bit, John. And in honor of Father's Day, and I stole this from the Patriot Pour the other day because we had this same topic. Ed asked everybody, like, hey, what's a lesson that you learned from your dad? And I know you don't have a great relationship with your dad, so that could go many number of ways, right? Maybe there's a lesson there in that. I don't know. But I'll start out with mine because that will give you guys some time to think about it because I sprung that on you. So growing up, my dad always told me, he's like, everybody has a story to tell. You just got to figure out how to get it out of them. And it drove me nuts as a kid, right? Because I'd be anywhere. My dad will talk to anyone. The grungiest homeless dude, the biker, like anybody. He has no filter, does not care. And the grumpiest person in the world within 2 minutes is like the happiest person with my dad. I'm like, that's impressive. That, I think I inadvertently got that ability from him. Yeah. And it's really like dictated the path of my life, right? Like I love stories and I love to get stories out of people. And that's what drives me to podcasting because I get to sit here and like get in your head for an hour and pull these stories out of you. So that's like the greatest lesson that I got from my dad. And I've, I guess I'm selfishly a collector of stories now. And I love that. And I record them stories and I keep them. I know everybody does though, right? Like my dad was right. Everybody has a story to tell. If you're young and you're listening to this podcast, you might not have stories yet. So go out and live your life and do cool stuff and get the stories, right? That's where they come from. They don't come from sitting in your basement playing video games. They come from experiencing life and going out and being on a submarine.
Eric has some good stories.
Or being a second responder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
are we going to do tug of war again?
Did you just do second responder?
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm rocking. I never made BC when I was with County Fire, but when I left, I went to the
I don't know what that means.
Battalion chief. So I never tested.
So he's throwing rank out. Is that what's happening right now?
I never made battalion chief. I left as a captain, but when I was leaving, I was turning in all my gear. I was in the warehouse. I'm like, I was like, you guys mind selling me one of those BC hats? Yeah. So that's why I got a black hat. They're like, I don't know. You weren't. I was like, just give me one of those damn things.
So that's my, I've got some other lessons from him for sure, but that's like the one that he inadvertently taught me that was just by example, right? Of like, wow, you and I don't always want to talk to people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But sometimes I do. And like every time I do, I'm surprised. And the stories are sometimes tragic, right? You got somebody in the backseat of your patrol car, like one that comes to mind. I should preface, by the way, if you have kids listening, there may be some inappropriate content in this podcast. Just keep that in mind.
If we go into stories, there's going to definitely be some inappropriate
content. Not from me. I'm 100% G-rated.
But like I can't explain it, but I collect those stories, right? And I can think. I had this chick in the back of my patrol car one time, and I hooked her up for meth or something, and I'm driving her to the jail, and she's telling me, we're just talking like we do. And she's telling me how she got pregnant by her dad when she was 14. Mm-hmm. And they all still live, and their dad still lives with her and the baby. And I'm like, wow. It like changes your perspective, right? You hear something like that and you're like, holy shit, man. Like, yeah, that's heavy.
Well, hell yeah.
And maybe a story like that, maybe it just makes you thankful for your own life, right? Like, well, my life's pretty damn good.
Right.
I don't have to deal with that. So what's a lesson you guys learned from your dad?
Send it.
Yeah. You first. Sorry, I put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
That's funny. Like my dad, it's funny. I'll preface this by saying, my dad and I don't talk a whole lot, and we didn't have a great relationship when I was growing up. But I never questioned that my dad didn't love me. He always looked out for me, everything else. But it just unfortunately, we didn't necessarily see a lot of things eye to eye. And he was a single parent, and we didn't do a whole lot together once I got a little older, right? But I will say that probably some of the biggest things I learned from my dad is that even though my dad and I had a very strained relationship, when I lived with my dad, that was his life, right? Like good, bad, indifferent, whether or not we spent a lot of time together. My dad he was a poker dealer. So I would come home, especially in high school. I'd come home at 3:00, every kid's dream. They got the house to themselves all day.
Yeah.
Cause I'd come home. Actually, I'd get out of school at like 2. I'd have sports. A lot of times I'd be home 4 or 5 o'clock. Dad's already gone. He works until 2 a.m. I don't even see him. Right. So you know the cycle, but I do know, like, growing up at a younger age, especially, my dad spent a lot of time with me, right? A lot of time with me. And we didn't have shit. Like, I look back, we were watching some VHS tapes with my kids the other day, and my dad was, has big old, big old cameras on his shoulder. And we're walking around my room, and I realized how similar I was to the show Stranger Things. You guys seen Stranger Things?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love that show.
You remember when they're sitting there, and I didn't even realize it until I saw this video, but the 2 kids were sitting there, the brothers, in the room, and they're just listening to the music, and they're just bebopping. Like, there's nothing else to do. They're just listening to music. My dad's taking a film, and that's what me and my buddy Kevin are doing. We're just sitting there, just bebopping. Like, that was what we had. And when you go around my room, I had a couple of football helmets, a baseball glove. Like, I didn't have shit at all. I hardly had toys. Like, we just didn't have a lot of money. But my dad actually did do a very good job when I was younger, like, trying to spend time with me.
Yeah.
A lot of videos of us going out doing it. And I think that that's probably the number one thing, even though we don't have a great relationship and there was a lot of other turmoil, communication was a huge issue with me and my dad, is that with my kids, now I'm like, dude, I want to spend a lot of time with them.
You do a really good job of that. I mean, you every day, Dave goes to the gym with his son. Like, you do that religiously.
Yeah.
Well,
you guard that time.
You're intentional about that.
And that's huge, because I don't want, I want my son to feel the same way in terms of that.
Thanks, dude. Right here.
Turn it
right there.
Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah,
we got the deep voice.
good.
Yeah.
So I like that, because it's something that, I want my son to feel that I was intentional with him, and I want my daughter to as well. It's a little harder to connect with my daughter than it is with my son, but if you have girls.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that was probably the number one thing. I was just wanting to be intentional with my kids. And so I try to have a better relationship and try to, like, really focus on them, because I don't want them to be like me one day, move to another place and me not come visit them or anything else. Like, I want to be there for them. So I think that was just the biggest thing, is at a younger age, my dad really did, all the shit that he did, whether it didn't cost money or whether it was just going out and just playing catch. Even if we got in a fight, right? Because I wasn't doing it right, or, however it was, he still made the attempt to spend time with me. I think that's really important, and something that a lot of men don't do with their kids.
Yeah.
Father's Day is not what it used to be. Like, you're supposed to spend time with the kids, and it's very hard, especially for you right now, because you're still a cop. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
He works 3 jobs, right? We only have 1 anymore.
I know.
So yeah. Good one, dude. Eric, what you got?
Man, I think mine's kind of similar. My dad and I've got a kind of a unique relationship. I ended up, when I got out of the military, the first time I actually moved to Florida to take care of him. He had a pretty major cardiac event, so I moved there to take care of him. So he lived with me for a really long time as an adult, and he's still here local. I think a lot of it, and I don't even mind kind of breaking that down, because I think he'd say the same thing. I think some of the most valuable lessons I learned from him were probably mistakes that he'd made, which was eye-opening, because as a kid, you look at your dad and you're like, my dad's incapable of making mistakes. He's everything about him. You kind of idolize that role model, and man, that dude would work, especially when it came to, like, hard labor, doing stuff yourself, like working on cars. You can do all this, and he taught all that, which sucks now, because I think dads don't get that opportunity to teach their kids as much, because everything's available online. Whereas back in the day, that skill set was valuable and coveted, and you spend time with your grandparents, and they teach you how to build fences and dig ditches and run sprinklers and fix cars and all that.
Yeah.
He was construction dude, so he was always really, really good at that. But if I was being completely honest about the lesson that I learned from him, it'd probably be disciplined intelligence is worse than being stupid. You can, if you honestly walk in everywhere, and we've talked about surrounding yourself with people that are better than you at certain things or smarter, but if you walk in and you automatically assume you're the smartest person in the room, you don't grow very much.
Yeah.
So that one, just kind of watching some of those things manifest and watching some relationships dissolve, and he'd take ownership of a lot of that. That's a pretty valuable lesson to me. Yeah.
I mean, and that points out what I was trying to say is, like, sometimes those lessons are like how you don't want to be, right? Right. And you're right. You hit a certain age where you start to see through that pedestal that your dad's on, and it's
they're
like,
fallible.
Yeah. You're like, and especially now I'm in my mid 40s, and I look, I'm like, oh, wow, you're missing these things here. And it's very obvious to me now, but as a kid, I nothing but gold. Right. And then it gets me thinking, like, what am I missing with my kids? And what are they going to look back at?
What do they see me as?
My kids already think I'm a retard because of, technology.
Right.
Kids are so much better at technology now.
Yeah, that's true. It's accurate.
You can't even find the the whatever app on your phone, and I'm like, oh, it takes me a minute, okay? Like, hang on. And they can do it in 2 seconds.
No, dude. Even when you asked that question, that was the first thing that came to mind. It's like, what
Yeah.
would my kids say? And
Right.
especially my son. He's the same age as your daughter, and you know they're going. It's that weird age where they still respect you sometimes, right?
Mhm.
But they kind of keep you at arm's length, and they're trying to figure it out. I just don't even shy away from being fallible anymore.
Yeah.
Like if I make a mistake, it's not like I said it, so it has to be accurate. If I was wrong, I don't mind going back and saying, hey, look, I thought about this. Here's my thought process. I think I was wrong in saying this, or I think I messed up when I did this. I don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. There's different ways to parent, but I'm okay if we get that infallible crap out of the way early.
Yeah, I think that is important. Like apologizing, knowing how to apologize to your kids too. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I screwed up. Like,
Yeah.
I was
Right.
wrong. Here
Guess
you
what?
go. That's a good lesson for them.
It's my first time with a teenager, so this
Right.
is my first go-to.
And there's no manual.
I tell everybody,
no
I'm
name.
like, I know perfectly how to parent an 8th grade daughter. But unfortunately, as of today, she's in 9th grade, and I have no
Yes.
freaking clue where to go from here.
Right. Yeah.
No idea.
So-
Yeah,
So I got that down. Check.
you're always one step behind. It feels like.
And they always got to push it. And we're all of a sudden the old guys, right? Like what is this trend with dudes wearing shorts? All the dudes, like teenage boys.
That's what I'm trying to pull my
You
shorts
should
down.
see Dave's shorts
God
right now,
dang it.
100%.
All right. No, go ahead.
No,
Yeah,
but
go
I'm talking
tirade.
about like they'll roll them up intentionally so they
Yeah.
look like 80s basketball players.
Yeah.
Everybody's rocking John Stockton shorts
I
now.
don't hate it, to be honest with you. Like, I
But
mean,
when they show
I
their
like-
underwear underneath them, like they wear
Negative. No,
long
no, no, no.
yeah, that's a
boxers,
little silly, right?
right? And then they're rolling them up, and all of a sudden we're the old guys. Like, oh, what's up with these kids these days?
Yeah.
Have you listened to their music?
So are,
like, we're
are
those guys.
cargo shorts not cool anymore? Because
Oh.
they're very useful.
Abercrombie had them when I was in college. They were a
Right.
big thing.
That's all I had.
Yeah,
I
cargo
still
shorts.
have in my.
You stuff all your shit in there.
It's
It was
handy.
great.
You just said it. Useful. You're the old guy, bro.
Yeah.
You're an old. So are
Right.
pocket protectors. Those are useful. You
Good
don't see us
point.
wearing
So
that.
I mean,
shit.
I have gone to function over style. I agree with that.
Fanny packs.
I don't buy my shoes at Costco yet.
New Balance.
Could happen.
I don't
The
think I
white
bought
New
a pair of
Balance,
shoes there. No.
Well, you
Yeah.
guys are about that age, right? How old are you?
44.
And how old are you?
Well, I'll be
Shut up.
What? I'm just
You're
saying
like
I'm the
8
baby here.
days younger than me. I had a lot of mileage on this chassis, but you're like 8 days younger than me. Bro. Shit.
Just saying I'm the young.
I legit am having a hard time finding shorts. I don't know what to do. Like, I carry a gun every day. I need shorts that can carry a gun, right? I
Mhm.
can't wear like really soft fabricy stuff because they'll fall down.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do here? Do I
wanna
just
stop
own
talking
it and
about
go
your
cargo
pants 'cause
shorts?
I keep looking at
I
your
keep.
pants.
I know. Well, I'm wearing. Yeah, these are cargo pants.
He's
Like,
junk checking Seth.
I,
Every
I,
other.
I,
He's
his
just-
testicles are.
Yeah,
His shorts are so. His
that's
shorts are so
true.
short. His testicles are hanging on the bench.
They're just
so,
dangling.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
All right.
Is Dave
Just wear a
blushing?
Kenai. Get a gunfighter's Kenai holster and wear that thing everywhere.
Look at that total plug
Just-
right there.
Yes, there.
I had to go
Good.
buy my own.
Maybe they'll call me back.
I'm carrying my I got my fanny pack, you know, my Hill People Gear fanny pack. And I started carrying it like I carry it crossbody sometimes because
Yeah.
it's just a shade cooler than wearing it like a fanny pack. But that's a pretty useful way. So
Yeah.
I could do that with some of the new shorts out there.
There you go.
That would work. That's
Okay.
a good look, right? Short
Yeah.
shorts and a fanny
You're
pack.
talking to the wrong person, bro. Like
Good
I'm a
point.
grown adult and I have a 28-inch inseam. So when you're talking about buying shorts, even when I try to buy Dave shorty shorts, they're still down to my knees. I look like I'm wearing jeggings. It's
This is
great.
perfect.
That's good times. There we go. I've made fun of myself. You can't call me short, assholes.
I look teeny back here, by the way.
You do. If Dave is not that small, it's the perspective on the camera. So if you're listening,
fine.
you don't notice any difference.
We're just
But
saying that to make him
if you're
feel.
watching the video, he's not child size. It looks like he is in the video. Wow.
He is
I
full
do.
grown.
That's shocking.
I do have little hands, though. I don't have big hands.
Do you really have little
I
hands?
just I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. It's on camera. I don't want to show my little hands.
Well,
No, I'm gonna put mine.
I'm
up
gonna
here
hold
so
on to
they're
this.
gigantic.
This looks big.
let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
A lot of it, actually. Get back to the story thing. And I'm going to ask you guys to tell a traumatic story. And I'll start too, of course, because I think that, I got to give you a second to process. But I was racking my brain all day because I was like, I want to touch on some trauma and then perhaps, just discuss it and kind of understand, what lessons were learned from that too.
And this is really where you need to give a disclaimer. If you don't want to hear some of this stuff, I mean, these are a lot of stories that came from when we were on duty.
Yep.
When he was a highway patrol and I was a fireman, he was law enforcement. So if stuff like that makes you queasy, I mean, these things it's the reality of what happens.
Yeah, my stories, and I'll give you a snapshot of the worst day I had on the department. And I'll give you one scenario from that. There's a lot to it. It's a whole podcast worth, but I'll do that another day. So my story, and it was the moment that I felt the most helpless on the job that I have ever felt. And yeah, so here we go. So it was during the campfire, right? Big event, Paradise, California. The entire town burned down, and I lived in that town at the time. I think around 10,000 homes burned down. It might have been 14,000. It was a lot. 30,000 people displaced, over 30,000 within a matter of hours, right? So I was up there doing evacuations. This was prior to learning that my wife and kids had gotten out early, so there was a lot of stress. And I was at a very small intersection, fully surrounded by vegetation. I got up there and the embers, like, just to set the scene, raging fire, 40-mile-an-hour winds. So it was spotting miles ahead of itself. So there was fire everywhere. And I'm in this intersection. I parked my patrol car, facing downhill because I was like, I'm going to get run out of here hot. I knew it. But there were hundreds of cars backed up on this road. So speaking of traffic control, I was just getting people off the hill. That was the goal. And hang on a second. There we go. I was out of breath. Still bugs me, obviously. So I'm in this intersection. It's dark. Now, mind you, it's daylight, but it's dark because the fire was that intense. And you could hear propane tanks cooking off, right?
Oh, yeah.
Boom, boom, like constant. And you're like, holy shit. Like that, every propane tank that goes up is a house, right? And both lanes coming down the hill are blocked. We've got literally hundreds of cars backed up. And then fire trucks in the other lane. Like there is 0% chance of getting into that area. And this car pulls up, this guy, and he's in a total panic. He's got his windows down. He pulls up and he's like trying to go up there. And I'm like, dude, like it's physically impossible. I cannot let you up there. And he's on the phone and I hear this screaming on the other line, on the other end of the phone. He's like, my grandma is up there. And like, I got to go get her. Her house is on fire and she's invalid and she can't get out. And I'm like, okay. The radio, if you've ever worked a scenario like that, the radio was like off the hook, right? It's impossible to get out on the radio at all. And even if I could, there's nobody available to go do anything about it. So I'm listening to this woman screaming and this guy who's obviously panicked and wants nothing more than to go save his mom. And he's like, dude, like, can I go up there? I'm like, you can't. Like, I would let you, but you can't. Can you get somebody on the radio? I'm like, I can't. There's nobody to go. And, I stood there for a second and I was like, I can't fucking do anything for this guy. So I turned my back and I walked away. And that was like the moment that one stuck with me more than anything in my job of like, holy shit, I'm fucking useless. I can't help this guy at all. And, yeah. So I guess like my point to that story is, one, that sucked really bad. Two, like I've always wondered what his perspective on that was. Like, did I just destroy his faith in the public safety system? Right.
Yeah.
Like you wear this uniform and people come up to you and they expect you to solve their problem. And most of the time we can. And then there was that moment where I was like, I can't, I got nothing.
Yeah.
And that shit was hard. And I've always wondered like what he thinks about it. Does he hate me? Does he hate all of us? Does he, you know what I mean? Or is he forgiven? I don't know. I'm quite sure she's dead. Like, I have no doubt.
Dude, that's super hard. And you know what? I think a lot of people don't realize, like, those aren't the stories that you bring back to your family right away. Those are ones that they surface years and years later. Mm-hmm. They're not something that you run home and you tell your wife about, that you tell Kristen about, anything else like that. And that was the same thing for me. Like, I would never go home and just tell my wife those things. I would tell her, oh, yeah, we were in a recliner, we were playing video games. Like, that was what it was, so she didn't have that. And those are hard because when that stuff happens, and I think that's where people don't realize that is the brotherhood and brotherhood and sisterhood, like being able to have people that have experienced similar things like that or understand that can actually be put in that those are the people that first responders have a tendency to seek. Right? I could go to you and tell you my whole line of items. I could go to you and tell you every single bad thing that I've ever seen, stuff that I wouldn't even mention on here. And I would feel comfortable doing that because I know that there's a resonance where you understand, yeah, I've been there. Like I felt useless where somebody's crying out for their mom, their dad, their kid, and you can't do a single thing. And so I wonder too. I mean, that's hard where you were at. That's a rough situation.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's not, I've got plenty of gory stories or other, dangerous stories getting shot at or whatever, but it's like, that's the one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've probably pushed the limits on what I should tell my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I did tell my wife about that one, because that one's just like, just ate me up for a long time. But, and maybe there's some, I don't know, maybe there's some value in sharing that with the kids too, to some extent. I kind of downplayed stuff that I tell them, but I did tell them a lot. And maybe that gives them a better awareness of the world. I don't know.
Well, I think it comes back to what we said before. You're talking about your fallibility, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you could even recognize that if you break that whole thing down, there was nothing you could have done to change the outcome of that. And you almost have this irrational attachment. I've watched it with some of my best friends in the department, where they know that the answer that they think they should have done isn't the right one, and that there's nothing they could have done to change the outcome. Your brain doesn't let you go from that. It's like, I should have done this. I could have done this. And it's interesting. You go back to, how does he remember me? Because I remind our cops of that all the time. Sometimes to us, it's just another Tuesday. This may be the most traumatic event that they've ever encountered in how you interact with those folks, right?
Yeah.
Just being decent and just trying to explain it to them, right? Like, but it is odd in our line of work, because you go back and say, I should have done something, but knowing that you couldn't have.
Yeah.
You know
It eats you out, right? Because most of the time you can't affect change, right? You can't do something.
Yeah.
To have that scenario was like, holy shit.
Right.
Heavy. And nobody else knew. Like, there were other guys in the intersection, like, they didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're all doing stuff. Like, there's no chance I could tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an interesting day. And Dave and I talked about this the other day. We were talking about, being able to trust your partners, and like, are they going to be able to perform at that moment that I need them to perform? Right. And I was kind of saying, like, hey man, like, I fully believe that courage is, it's an energy that can wear out too. Like, cause I felt it that same day. Like,
Oh, I agree.
Later on, I hit a point. I had been up there for a while, and the fire burned over. I got out, but I was just like, I pulled my car down. Most of the people were out by that point at that intersection. And, I pulled my car down, like, to the shoulder, just outside of the fire. So it was like right in front of me. And, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I could hear people calling for help. Like, the hospital was like calling for help to evac. And I'm like, I know, I just came from there. I know what I got to get through to get there. And I couldn't do it. I was just sitting on the shoulder, like, fucking twiddling my thumbs.
It's hard because people have a tendency, they need somebody, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why they call 911. You talked about it. I mean, people are calling 911 because it's the worst day of their life. It is a Tuesday for us.
Right.
But it's the worst day of their life. And you get very numb to that. And I think it's important to think of those things. But there's also the courage, and there's also stupidity. And years of being in CHP and years of being around those things and triaging and saying, what can I do? I really think like that's a situation where you were faced with, what can I do? And the answer, as you ran it through your head with everything else, is that there is nothing I can do.
Yeah.
We had a story about some firemen back east that we studied where they lost about 8 firemen. They had guys go down inside this commercial building, and then they sent in their RIC team. That's a rapid intervention crew. So I was part of I did a lot of RIC training down there, and that was like the Ladder 49 movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where you go get your own. It's not, somebody else. You see all those, but no, this is like where you go get your brother, right? Somebody's down. The RIC team, although people hated being the RIC team, because you literally sat there. I mean, your fireman didn't go down. It's not something that happens routinely. Nobody wanted to be assigned to RIC, but they had the most important job because those are the people going into that place. Well, there's a big warehouse to get to the point of like not being able to do something. And I don't want to say being stupid, but there's a thought process, right? Is that they send in a RIC team, which is what they rightfully should do. Well, they lost contact with that RIC team. So they sent in another RIC team.
Oh, God.
And they lost contact with those guys. And they sent in a third RIC team. Okay. Now you can imagine how you've now seen 8 of your brothers go in there into that fire to go save these guys, right? 2 already in there and 6 people have gone in. And you can imagine what's going through your head, right? I mean, you're sitting there at that intersection, like, what can I do? And the chief had to get in front, the battalion chief on scene. I remember hearing this article. He had to get in front of the doors and stop his guys from going in.
Damn, that's a hard call.
He had to actually use force and stop his guys from going in that structure because they were going to die. Like, that's the point where there's losses that happen in this. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying you need to deal with it, but there's a point where you have to realize, as a first responder, as a cop, a fireman, EMT, medic, whatever it is, there's a point where you have to make a triage decision to stop the bad things from happening. Had you taken that guy up there, you very well could have widowed your wife, and he could have not survived as well.
It's funny that you say that, because that exact scenario happened not long after that. My partner Sam rolled up, been a friend of mine for a long time. He lives up here now, by the way. And he rolled up to me on the shoulder. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "Well," kind of told him. He's like, "All right." He's like, "Let's go." And I was like, "Okay." And I followed him right up in there. And we got to the intersection that I was at. It had pretty much burned through. You know, everything's on fire, but it's not like a firestorm at that point. Mm-hmm. And another chippy had put out a call, basically an 1199, which is like, you know, officer needs assistance, because he crashed his car. And I knew the road because I lived up there, right? And it's like this little hollow, and he crashed and he was on foot. And the last thing we heard was like, "I'm on foot and everything's on fire." And like, he's screaming, and I was like, holy shit, dude. So Sam came up and was like, "I'm going." And I was like, "The fuck you are, dude." Like, no. And I don't remember this clearly, but he told me later that I physically restrained him from driving into that particular location because of that exactly. I was like, if you go in, I'm going to go in. Yep. And I know what it's like in there, and we're both going to die. And heavy. That chippy ended up surviving, by the way. He jumped in a Cal Fire bulldozer.
Yeah.
Crazy. Got out of there, but holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a hard call too. That's a really hard call. Oh. Fuck.
Well, what it seems like is, in those moments, you tend to like compartmentalize, and you can make rational decisions. Mm-hmm. I think where it hits you is later, because you second guess everything that you do, and you're talking about splitting seconds. Yeah. Well, if I'd done this, if I just recognized this, if I could have been there a little faster, or if I would have known this part, I would have, if this person had done this, and then you play the blame game with yourself going, well, if I'd worked a little harder, if I'd stayed late, whatever it is that turned into, you start to second guess yourself, and that's hard.
Yeah.
That'll eat you.
Oh, it did. It wrecked me. I didn't realize until literally, this was 5 years ago. You know, I didn't realize it until years later. Like I could not go to patrol after that. I'm like, I just didn't want to do it anymore. It broke me in a lot of ways. And I don't think I really went. I went into the office after that. I went to background. Like, I never went back to patrol after that. Like, it was fucking rough.
Yeah, it's an ugly one.
Mm-hmm. That's tough, dude.
Yeah.
What you got?
I'll lighten the load a little bit.
Yeah, good call.
And the reason is, so this is actually a call that I dwelled on for years, but it's a happy ending. This is a good one. Nonetheless, it was one of the hardest things that I had to do. This is a crazy call. I had my buddy, I'll tell him to watch this, Brad Moore. Brad and I were, there was a point where at Station 41 in Yucca Valley where we lost some funding and stuff. We lost our limited term firefighters, our EMTs. So they only came in for 12 hours. And then they'd go, so we'd run 2 ambulances. Brad and I were both medics, and we would run an EMT. So we'd run 2 medics during the day, and then they'd go home at 8 o'clock at night. And then Brad and I would jump in, and then we would rotate calls. So we'd have a dual medic box. Anyways, so we got a call one night, and we get a call for, I think it came in as a shortness of breath, or something like that, some sort of either unconscious, shortness of breath, whatever, for this 12-year-old girl. And like anything, right? Everybody ramps up when it's a kid, of course, because you're like, holy shit, like a kid shouldn't be having these medical issues, right? It's a 96-year-old. You're like, I don't know. I mean, not taking anything away from a 96-year-old, but they're meant to have shortness of breath at that age.
Right.
Right. So we jump in the ambulance, we head to this call, and we get there. And I remember Brad and I walked in. And so this girl was, God, I wish I could remember her name, man. I remembered her name for so long, but she's 12 years old and she has some major disabilities. I used to call her mom every year on the anniversary too. She was amazing. But anyway, so we get there for this 12-year-old girl, and I walk in, and right when Brad and I walk in, we start getting vitals, and I'm looking at her and I'm like, kids are resilient. If you know anything about kids medically, they kind of shunt off all the bad things until the very end, and then they drop. So kids have a tendency to just be really resilient. They can handle a lot. So this girl has some major medical conditions. She was partially blind. She had some mental issues, a lot of different things, some developmental issues. She was in a wheelchair part-time. Anyways, so she already had a lot of health stuff anyways. Well, we get there and this girl's on the floor, and it's just, as a medic, there's certain times when you look at people and you're like, man, there's something wrong with you. I don't know what it is, but I can tell you right now, there's something wrong with you. And I can't pinpoint it. Well, that was this, right? We get there and we try to get her on a blood pressure cuff. We put an SpO2 on her. We're trying to get vitals and she's just squirming. And I'm like, dude, something is wrong. Like this and bad is happening. So now mom was used to this girl going to the hospital and having a lot of treatment because of her disease and everything else. So it was kind of another Tuesday for mom, right? She was like, man, can you guys take her in? And we're like, yeah, we'll take her in. So I remember we get her into the ambulance and mom's there and I'm like, hey, we're going to get her there right away. Okay. So we're going code. And it's like 2:00 in the morning and mom's like, okay, I'm going to run, grab some food and a couple things. I'll meet you guys at the hospital. Okay. So we get in the back and within 2 or 3 minutes in the back, she dumps. Okay. Now we're at the point where we're like ready to do CPR on this little 12-year-old girl. And I'm like, fuck. So we are driving as fast as we can. Obviously, I mean, endangering everybody, right? At 2 a.m, we're going like 90 miles an hour down to the hospital in Joshua Tree.
We've done that together.
Yeah, we have. But that's one of those things, right? It was a triage. I mean, we're moving, hauling ass to get down there. We have to start CPR on our daughter in the back of the ambulance. And nobody likes to lose a kid, right? That's like the thing that we never come home and tell our family. So anyways, we get her to the hospital and there's nobody in the hospital. I mean, it's like bed 1 through 8 is empty. They take her right into the trauma room. I mean, we call in and we're like, hey, dude, we got 12-year-old CPR in progress. Like we need shit going on. So every doctor's there. It was amazing. Like, I mean, we had probably 30 hands. We get her in there and everybody's in there working her. Okay. We got her intubated. We got everything going on and they're fully working on her. And all of a sudden, we're outside and I'm like, shit, like this is, we gave them a report. Now they're all working on her. They got everything going on. And I'm watching this girl I'm going, oh no. And then all of a sudden, the front desk girl, I remember she comes up and she's like, hey, mom's here. And I look around and there's no doctors available. Everybody's in there, right? There's no doctors available. There's no nurses. They're on full. I mean, everybody's in there working her. And I'm like, oh, God dang it. And I just saw this lady 5 minutes ago. So I go up to the front and I get a look at her and she's out there with a big gulp. She's out there with her food. She's just waiting to come in. And I had to take her and I remember going to get her and I had to walk her past as they're working on her daughter. And I'm like, whew. And she has no idea that that's her in there, right? So I have to take her to this consultation room. And I'm like, I sit her down for a minute and I go back and there's nobody's available, right? Everybody's working on this girl. They got everybody. And I'm like, God dang it. So I had to go in there and tell mom, like, hey, they're working CPR on your daughter right now. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. This is where we're at. They have her intubated, everything else. I watch mom obviously break and I have no support. I'm like, oh God, like this is rough. My partner's even in there working on her. It's just me. And I'm like, and it was crazy because she turns to me and she's like, will you pray with me? And I'm like, yeah, I'll let's do it. Right. So we sat down, we prayed. Super hard. I had to tell her, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't let you in there with your daughter right now. I don't know what's going on. And so they worked her for 30 minutes, flew in a bird. And this is where it becomes happy, right? She had 16 strokes in the time. She coded, I think 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
All right. Had to go down to Loma Linda and she ended up surviving. I think she had a little bit of deficit from some of her strokes. But for the most part, she was still, she's still, from what I know, she's still around today. Dude, being in that situation, because, doctors do it a lot. And we've had to do it on scene. I know every one of us has, but there was something about the age, the expectation that this is normal. She goes to the hospital all the time. And seeing mom walk in with the big gulp and, chips, like, oh, I'm just here to do this thing.
It's another night at the hospital.
Right. And I hadn't been trained for that. That's not something that I necessarily did all the time as a medic, or at least by myself. And so having to be in that situation with her was like devastating. Like I said, it's a happy story. Right. I'm psyched. It's a happy story. God, dude, I should reach out to Brad and ask him about how they're doing. I think they still live in Yucca, but it was amazing to see her faith and to see that stuff come out the right way. But God, people don't realize, we put so much pressure on these law enforcement and military and firefighters, and we have this expectation that they know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'll be clear, there's no fucking training at all for that. I don't care what you say. Amen. And I used to check in with my guys all the time when I was a captain. We'd have calls like that. And I'm like, hey, are you good? And I'm all about getting people PTSD trained, CSI, CISM, everything else, like getting you taken care of. But there was also a lot of me that would turn to my guys after that years later and say, listen, I've been there and it sucks and I'm here to help you. But I need to know that your head's in the game.
Yeah.
When we go back out there and we have that call, and then 2 minutes later, we have the exact same call, I need you to be able to step up and save a life. I need you to be able to do this stuff. If you can't, this may not be right for you. There's a lot of suppression. There's a lot of stuff that goes into every single one of us. But that was a tough one where even though we came out on the positive side, right? It was like, it wore on me for a long time. It wasn't something that I went home and told my wife. I told her, we had this 12-year-old and, you know, she went into cardiac arrest, but she's safe. She's good. Like that was the story. It wasn't this.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Wild. There's a theme there though, right? Like we've all seen traumatic stuff, and I know we could talk about more gory stuff, right? And things that are just ugly that most human brains don't have to see and process. Yeah. But what you guys are talking about is the most traumatic is that human interaction and experience, because that's where it sits. Because you naturally, if you're any kind of decent person, I think you empathize and you put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Going, how did they perceive my interaction with them in that moment? Because you're wrecking their world. Like, and there's just no way around it. And that's your job. And that to me, mine's the same way, right? Like we have some ugly ones, but your interaction with people in that worst moment, like that's what sits with you, right? Like ours was, I'll kind of keep locations out, I guess, but we had, I was on dive rescue with county and guy's down fishing and he sees something in the water and he says, I think there's a car in the water. So we go and 3 or 4 of us suit up, and there's weird little things that you don't forget, like that just stick. And you see like hair, and it's murky and nasty and it's shallow. It's not like it's technical diving, but you see hair, and then hair moves and you see kids, and it's human children look so much different than adults when they're gone, especially in the water. It looked like dolls, and it's just one of those things that you can't unsee. We recover them and pull them out, and there were circumstances around that one that made it even worse because it was intentional and it was ugly and holding hands in the car and all of that. But we recover them, pull them out, and I had young kids at the time. And, you know, you pull them out and you take them up and they recover them and, you know, put them in the ambulance. And I was on duty that day. So I go back and start to take off my stuff, and you're just starting to process. And it was interesting watching how the guys processed it differently, because fire was there too. And so was law enforcement, because law enforcement ran the dive team, but there were some guys yelling and some guys processing it different. It was pretty bad, but I'm kind of more internal. I'm just leaning up against my car, and similar to what you're talking about, but it went a different way. A supervisor came up to me as I'm getting my dry suit off, and I'm just kind of leaned against my car, and he said, "Hey, are you good?" And I kind of expected that. And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm good." He goes, "All right, I need you to take that off. You got to go do notifications." I was like, "All right." So give myself a couple minutes, get out of my stuff, put on my uniform, and then go notify Dad. And there he was, you know, late 20s, early 30s. And I think he'd say he'd made some mistakes. They'd done some things and we were familiar and all that. But then have to go give that notification. And I remember everybody goes through this disbelief, but you're telling them that his 1 and 3-year-old sons are dead, and they don't believe it. And literally saying, "Man, I had my hands on him, man. Like, this isn't me getting notified. This is me. An hour and a half ago, I pulled him out of the lake," providing that finality. And then his reaction was a physical one. And I didn't even mind. Like, it's weird being in uniform and have somebody physical with you. And of course, you know, it's odd, but it was immediately after that, it was go tell Grandpa, which was probably even worse. I mean, if there's one way you can make jury duty worse, it's pulling a guy out of jury duty for that reason. I think what bothered me the most is like the way that trying to figure out what my brain does. Because while I'm telling Dad right after this really hard notification and this really crappy day, I'd had a grand theft burglary call the day before. And all they had was like this snapshot of a surveillance camera of the front of this Chevy Suburban, but it had a weird rim, and that stuck out to me. And this is a call the day prior. And as I'm sitting there, and I just got back in my car, I'm processing what happened, and I'm tearing up and all that. I see this Tahoe come, and my brain went right to the rim. I go, "Holy crap, that's that rim from that grand theft yesterday. That's the same car." So in the middle of all this, I write down the license plate, right? Like, and that bothered me. It bugged me. Like, that's one of those I warned my wife. I was like, "Hey, if if I'm in the garage for a little bit, just let me be, because we had take home. So it's like, just give me like 10, 15 minutes just to get your mind right, you know, just to kind of clear it before you walk back in, because your kids are going to jump on you what you want. They don't know what you just did, and you want them to do that. So it's like, give me a few, but long and short of it, it's so important to have a good support system at home. But I kind of got my mind right. Went back the next day, sure as heck, it's the same car from the grand theft, but I was able to go recover it, and it was a stolen cell phone. And the woman who got it taken from her was literally bawling in my arms at her place of work because she had the last pictures of her dad who died on that cell phone that she never would have got back. So it was like, I was mad at myself for where my brain went, because why would it even, why would it do that? You know, why in the middle of that moment does crap? There's still like this, we do joke about our ADD all the time.
Oh yeah.
Rampant ADD or ADHD that we all have. It's like, what is wrong with me that I'm not processing it or prioritizing?
Right.
It was just weird. It was a weird reaction to that, but that's law enforcement.
Dude, those notifications are difficult.
Yeah. That one was tough.
Dude, I got my alarm going off on my phone. What kind of jerk move is that?
Grab the bourbon on your way back.
Yeah.
Hold on.
The human toll, I think that, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to point out of like where I was going with this, right? Because it's not, I know we don't like to share these stories necessarily. Like, my hands are still sweating from telling mine, and then hearing yours, like my voice was all shaky, and it's like 5 years after, right? But I guess I just wanted to point out the human toll. And, you know, if you're in that world, if you're listening and you're a first responder, like, I imagine this resonates with you. And I apologize if we're digging up some memories, but maybe they need to be dug up too. I don't know. But if you're not from that world and you want to understand that world, like, these stories are important, I think.
Yeah. And that's it's a hard thing because, I've been a big proponent for counseling for people that get done. And I tell this to my wife all the time, and it's my own fault. I mean, I'm going to admit, like, I've made this mistake, right? Is that, I'm a huge proponent on people getting counseling, but I've never gotten it. And no, but here's
like somebody I know.
Right. And but I don't think I'm the only, I'm the only former first responder, military, whatever else that hasn't received it and says that they should. I think that's super important. But the truth is that you find solace in being able to sit down with guys like you and say, hey, like, here's my story. Here's the stuff that I did. Like, the problem is that we're all dumb as shit, and you guys don't have any tools for me to fix it. Right. So, like, we're
not any good tools. Yeah.
Right. We don't have the tools. And I'm really excited. Jordan Joling, you know Jordan, right? Yeah. So Jordan's actually she's going through the process right now to become a therapist. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I'm like, man, when you get those tools, I'll come sit down with you, because she's walked the line. She's done it. And when I talk to her about the things that I won't tell my wife, she's not just a therapist. She's somebody that can also go, like, I know what you're going through.
I've been to therapy actually after the fire. Our whole family went, right? My kids went. It was a bad day, right? And they all needed it. My wife needed it, and I did. And it was hard. Like, I didn't want to be, everything in my body was like, I'm not sitting down with this woman. And then I start telling the story, and like, she did good. She didn't tear. She teared up, but she wasn't like breaking down. Right. And I would expect that. She teared up a little bit, but then, like, she spoke my language, right? She started dropping F-bombs, and like, we were cool. And I was like, okay, like, I can tell you this. And I went back many times. And it was hard because I remember the first time she took out her little book, and she said, hey, let me read you the definition of PTSD. And I was like, fuck no, we're not going there. Yeah, and then she did. And I was like, okay, like, cool. Now what? Yeah. And multiple times later, just talking, I'd just go in and just talk, like, whatever. It was whatever came out. And I found it to be useful. And in the end, it was like, okay, like, there was value in that. Yeah. Because I can share the stories with guys like you, and that's valuable for me too. But you don't always have that. Some guys can't do that.
Right.
There are plenty of departments out there where it's still taboo. Like, don't be a bitch. Shut up.
Or what they'll say is, yeah, man, I'll go out. Let's go get drunk.
Yeah.
Dude, there's nothing about that's gonna help. And as we said,
we're not getting drunk.
Yeah, no, but the whole point, like, that, there's no recovery in that.
Right.
Like, at some point, you just got to hit it and recognize what the human brain does and what's traumatic, and why there's certain, like, just like on the positive side, there's certain smells and sounds and feels. There's some girls from your past, you're going to smell perfume and be like, man, that's going to take you back to a place in time. right? Or a certain song that's going to take you back to a place in time. It's the same way with trauma.
Yeah.
We've got some here that, it's the crunching of snow, it takes you back to them.
God, see that, you saying that takes me immediately to a call up here.
Right.
Gosh.
Right.
Yeah. And
That's crazy.
I have the same, like I had some car fires like back to back and just bad, right? Bad. And, the smell, barbecue for a while wrecked me. And I was like, I can't even, every time like cooking barbecue with my kids. I know.
You're telling me,
right? I get it. Yeah. I get it. And, some time heals some of that for sure. And some of it goes away, but some of it never goes away. So I've got my own, I'll share mine. And then I'm curious how you guys what do you do to cope? For me,
cheers.
For me, like talking about it with the right people, you know what I mean? And I had some people in my life that I could talk to about these, some partners that I worked with that were there for all of these incidents. And it's like, we're alone in a patrol car at midnight working graveyards. And it's like, I could tell him he was there too. Right. My buddy, Sam, like he knows he went through all this shit with me. But like other ways that I coped, like I like to write. Like I have put all of these stories into like some version of a poem. I went in college, I was an English major and I did a lot of poetry classes. That's like my thing. So I boiled a lot of these stories down into like a page and it captures, the emotion, and I put that shit on paper and it comes out of my mind. Yeah. That's big for me. And that's not for everybody. I get that. But like and then the obvious ones like, being healthy in life, like that helps too. Working out, jujitsu. What do you do?
I'm more fascinated that every time we talk, there's some other weird layer of Seth that I'm like, the most interesting man in the world. You write out your stories and put them into effing poetry, dude? Like, come on. How the hell do you manage that?
Some of that shit's dark, dude. It's like, I don't share it with everybody because like you read it and it's fucking traumatizing.
Right. Yeah, but it's almost like you put it there and leave it. Like that's got to be almost liberating.
It's hugely liberating. And I have those. I had a great book of poetry prior to the fire. I lost everything in the fire. I literally, other than the clothes on my back when I went to work that day. So that was a bummer, but I guess that's a poetic way to lose things, is like your poetry is to have it burn up in a fire. But, I started over and I have dozens of poems that kind of capture that. I'll show them to you someday.
Yeah. It was like different chapters of your life and look what you've done with it. That was almost like a symbol, it was a symbol of what you did in real life. Yeah. It was like, that chapter's over. Time to go to the next.
Kind of circles back to like me being a selfishly like capturing stories, right? Like I capture, and some of these are other people's stories. These are their worst day of their life, right? I was just there and I captured that and I stole it and I put it in writing, and that's been good for me. And like Dave, it's probably faith for you, right?
Like how I cope?
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I probably have the most common and unhealthy coping mechanism.
Doritos?
I suppress. Doritos are huge. Doritos, actually, if there's like a disease that comes from eating Doritos, I have it. Like you can name it after me. I've eaten so many Doritos. My wife bought me 5 Dorito bags and framed them in the basement of our house. So we have like nacho cheese, spicy nacho, Cool Ranch.
I did not know this. I literally was just throwing Doritos out.
No. Okay, real quick side note. All right, when I was a kid, here's a real quick side note. I tell my kids this, and they tease me all the time, like, "You're a fat kid with a rat tail." I'm like, shut the hell up, dude. I freaking told you that story.
Yeah.
So here's where it stems from. So when I was a kid, this is a Doritos this is right off. I'll get back to my coping in a minute. But when I was a kid, I tell my kids about the story, right? My mom would, so we lived in Joshua Tree. They owned a locksmith shop. So every day I'd ride the bus to the locksmith shop. This was like pre-6th grade. Okay. I'd ride the bus to the locksmith shop, like 5th grade. I'd sit there, I'd do my homework, get all that stuff done. 5 o'clock, we'd lock up. We'd drive to Joshua Tree, which is about 10 minutes away. We lived in a really small, like 800 square foot home. It has 1 bedroom. My mom and my stepdad lived in the living room, and I had the 1 bedroom. And then we had a guest house that was like 300, 400 square foot, like small little, like literally like kitchenette, bedroom, studio, and then bathroom. And on the way home, we would stop at Mike's Liquor in Joshua Tree. I would get a bag of Doritos. I'd get either a king size Milky Way or a king size Reese's. I'd get like a big old thing of Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew. All right. We'd go next door to Paladin Video. I'd get some sort of like R-rated, like Steven Seagal, like beat your ass movie. And then we'd go back home. My wife, my mom, not my wife, Thankfully, she didn't know me then.
Yeah.
I was a little chubby kid. I wore husky shirts. So, and she would go, she's like, hey, do you want any dinner? I'm like, no, I'm good. So I'd go to the back house and I'd pull up my pet rat.
Come on.
Yes. Dude. So I had a pet rat named Splinter.
Of course. Yes.
Right. So imagine like 5th grade overweight me sit in a beanbag with my pet rat Splinter and turn on my movie and just chow, dude. So I would just eat these Doritos whole bag.
Did you feed him to the rat too?
I don't know.
Probably. I bet you did. You would have.
But it was a badass rat. Anyways,
Splinter.
So I know that came from coping. I'm sorry, but anyways.
No, I find it fascinating. I say there's multiple layers of Seth, which I find fascinating. You as well. It's in a different direction, but I still find it very fascinating.
And I had a rat tail at the time. That's how.
I mean,
Nice.
They were cool back then. In your defense,
I don't know if they were ever cool.
Well,
Let it go.
They were a thing.
They're coming back.
They were a thing. I think you should regrow. You could have a skullet right now.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, 100%.
So anyway, my coping mechanism either way has been a lot of suppression my whole life. Like I've gone on these calls, I've done this stuff, I've glorified firefighting into we don't really do a whole lot to my family. I come home and be like, oh yeah, like they know I love recliners, they know I love hanging out watching Netflix, net binging. You know, I'd tell them, hey, we watched the whole 9 seasons of The Office in 3 days. Like it was awesome. They know I go to the gym. They know I do those things. I'd tell them about some calls. Oh, yeah, this cool fire. I didn't tell them that I pulled this kid's cat out of the fire and had to throw it out to him. You know what I mean? Or threw it out in front of him. That was a bad one time. But like, I didn't talk to him about those things and how that meant stuff to the kid or how we lost somebody or how we had a family that just retired and had a rollover in a U-Haul and they died inside a fire inside a U-Haul. Like I didn't give those things. They said, oh, we had a vehicle fire. Oh, we had this. Like it was exciting. Right. So for me, I suppressed a lot of it and I just held on to it. And for you guys, like I will tell you, this is the first time I've like ever opened up to other people, but nobody's sitting here. It's just a camera. But for you guys, I'd open up and I'd tell you about that. That was the only time that I would unsuppress anything is with my friends. A lot of times it came out as jokes, right? You'd go on a fire, you'd deal with a dead family member or something. Maybe it wasn't as traumatic. Maybe it was somebody died in it, but there wasn't somebody there to claim them, right? And then you get back in the fire engine. And I've told people this a ton of times is that the things that I've said in a fire engine with my buddies, with Grant and John Schlotthauer coming back from, a fire in Needles, if people heard me say that, I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't like me.
Same here.
Right?
Yeah.
I've said stuff that I wouldn't say that I regret because it was my coping. It was my way of dealing with it because it's my burden to bear. But I know there's people out there that they heard what I said or the jokes that I made about somebody, the slander, whatever it was, that they would be like, you know what? You're not a person that I want to be around because they don't understand. Right. But it was my way of saying like, hey, like I got to get over this because I got to go to work.
Yeah.
I got shit to do. I got people to take care of. We're going to get a call in 30 minutes and I got to be on top of it. And if I don't make light of this terrible situation, then I just have to suppress it. Mm-hmm. And I suppress it to the world and I come home happy, smiling so my kids can jump on me. But it's an unhealthy thing, right?
But you trick yourself. You're minimizing something that is traumatic in order to say, hey, I'm good. How many times have you done that? I'm good. Like it. No,
all the time.
No, I'm fine. Right? In reality, maybe not so much, but you're convincing yourself. I attribute it to when I'm looking in the mirror and I drink way too much. I was like, you're not going to throw up. You're not going to do it. Stop being a bitch. You're not going to throw up right now. Don't you dare do it. Right? But it's really,
it makes the whole night better. Do it.
Yeah. Rough parallel, but that's the truth. You're telling yourself you're okay. And sometimes it's all right as long as you got an outlet, right? Because I think if all that stuff sits, then all of a sudden it's like one small thing is what breaks it. And you're like, why am I being such a bitch about this thing? And you're not. It's like you've held on to this for so freaking long that at some point in time, that's going to have an impact.
It took me a long time to decompress after like retiring and getting out. Like I had to shut my brain off of, like I stopped carrying a gun for like 6 months. I couldn't shut it off. Right. Like I moved up here and this place is great for healing. Like I think a lot of guys retire and they come here and they're coming here looking for that, like that solitude, a place to heal. And I think North Idaho is great for that because there's so much support. It's naturally beautiful. You can get outside, you can do stuff. But it took me like 6 months, man. I just like, I didn't want anything to do with it. Stop carrying my gun, nothing. Right. And then some time went by and I was like, okay, like I think I'm good. I can come back to the world and, now I carry a gun again, and I don't like obsess over like constantly like am I about to get into shooting? Like, because it was so ingrained in my brain, like every second watching everyone playing the what if game. What if this guy does that? What if guy?
Right.
I was like, holy shit, it's debilitating, crippling.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you're still in that world, but
No, I get it. No, but what you're describing, I think there's a lot of people that are probably listening to our podcast that have that same thing where you're walking around in the red. You know, you
All
talk
the
about
time.
you talk about threat levels, and that's not healthy either.
No.
That's not a position where you can actually respond accordingly to the threat that you perceive.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's wired that way and it's created a spot where you can't be in anything but red when you're conscious, like that's dangerous too. Like you
took
can't
me,
operate.
you can't. Like it's hard. It's hard in your family.
Yeah.
Like I've been my entire adult life, I've been like surrounded by violence. Like, you know, I was a bouncer for 6 years. I was in that world, like fights constantly. Right. And so my brain was just queued up for it, like all the time, just like shit's about to, like always, like violence is about to happen. And I'm not like naturally, like I always tell people, my parents are like hobbits, dude. They're like just good, kind people. I don't come from that world. I didn't have a hard childhood. So like I had to change my life or my whole persona to live in that world. And it freaking took a toll on me.
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah. A total shift from what it was.
Totally.
Well, I will tell you that, you know, it doesn't necessarily go away. I can tell you that because you're still in it, but I can tell you that, you know, it's funny when I go out to eat with my wife and I always sit facing the door.
Yeah.
Or I get somebody that comes up to me inside a bar, Nashville North, or someone's like, what are you staring at? I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just surveying the area. And you were there and you have a face tattoo. And I don't know. It's really nice. Like, you know, it's one of those things that
you are what I was staring at.
My kids say that. My son said, Dad, why are you staring at everybody? It's because I don't know these people. And I want to know what the hell they're up to, because I've been trained to walk into those places, even if it was only brief as a law enforcement officer, but even as firefighters, right? PPE, personal protective equipment, environmental hazards, you know, number of victims, mechanism of injury, additional research, like all this stuff where you're like surveying the scene and you're counting stuff out.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away.
It doesn't. I cannot shake that. I cannot go into, I spent 6 years in the bars. Like that's all I did. I didn't, you know, I don't drink when I'm working at a bar. I'm standing in the corner and I'm surveying a crowd, waiting for some shit to pop off. Like that's all I did. And that's what I did as a cop. That's what I did at riots. Like, and I can't shut that off.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I want to get a little risky, I intentionally turn my back to the door. I'm like, let's go. I'm gonna live on the edge tonight.
But you're trying to get somebody while you're showing homes to fight you?
I'm gonna live on the edge tonight.
You've heard about people attacking real estate agents? You're like,
dude.
Come on.
So yeah, that's a funny point, right? You see those emails come out where like a female agent's like, I had this weird interaction. I'm like, I wish motherfucker would try that shit. Like, let's go.
You daydreaming about
Yeah,
it?
I do. I'm like,
Please
yeah.
give me that
Sometimes
weirdo.
you know when you go into like a single bathroom, and you're like, maybe somebody's hiding behind the door. Yeah, there's a little part of me that's like,
Come on.
yeah, right. You're waiting for a little girl to walk in, but I'm walking in, motherfucker. Let's party.
Yes, yes.
Okay. There is a part of me. There is a part.
But
of me.
I'm walking in. Yeah. Okay.
You know what's funny is like I wouldn't trade it for the world.
No.
I cherish these experiences. I cherish in a weird way, not like I'm creepy or anything, but I cherish those experiences. Like people that do these jobs, people in the military, like you literally walk on the edge of chaos, like that thin line between order and chaos on the daily basis. And like, that's a section of the human condition that most people don't get to see, maybe once or twice in their life, but we get to see it every day. And I fucking cherish that a little bit. Like,
you know what? That kind of makes me think, like, we talk about, I used to have people say, dude, you're wasting my taxpayer money. I'm like, fuck you, man. Hey, check it out. I get paid for what, and you guys have heard this. I get paid for what I'm willing to do, not what I am doing. If you see me sitting my fat ass in a recliner, that's not what I'm getting paid to do. I'm getting paid for when your daughter's inside a house and you're too scared to go in there, that I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to put my all at it. I'm going to be trained and I'm going to be ready and I'm going to go do those things. And, you know, that's one of the hardest things for me is when people, for what you've done and everything else and what everybody in the military done. Today's D-Day, right? June 6th, 1944. Today's D-Day. People don't have an understanding of what their freedom is and the things that they have in this world because people were willing to go die. 16-year-olds were signing up for World War II providing fake IDs that they were 18 years old so that they could go fight for their country.
What a country we lived in.
Like, I mean, as a man of faith, I look at it and I'm like, I always put everything on Jesus, right? I'm like, somebody that died for you like owes you owe those things. You look at it and you go like, man, you did something for me to sacrifice yourself so that I could live free. It's the same thing with our men and women in uniform that have gone over there and done those things. Like they have literally put their lives on the line, and we forget, you know, we watch all this stuff and we're like, dude, some people died in training in 29 Palms. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't give a shit if it wasn't a war. Those people were out there training so they could protect your freedoms, and they died.
But instead we glorify, you know, the dude that became a woman so he can win all the swimming competitions.
Right. And
like, he's so brave. No, fuck that.
He's not brave.
No.
Because everything that he has, he, she, whatever the fuck it is, everything that that person has is because there's people willing to protect that freedom. And it's been a terrible experience in this time of life, especially for our kids, man, because people don't realize how important it was to stand up for something that you believed in. That's almost shunned on to walk around carrying an American flag. Yeah. That shouldn't be the way it is.
No. I think bravery is one of those words that has just been completely butchered, right? Yeah. Like when you think about what a hero is, we have such a glaring definition difference than what's put out on like mainstream media. I think it's so important because this comes full circle. We were talking about being dads. Like, how do you impart that on this generation where their sources of influence are so heavy with social media and all these different sources telling them who heroes are, like trying to reestablish what that word actually means. So what we're all talking about is somebody that's willing to sacrifice something for your freedoms.
Right.
How do you reestablish that in today's climate? And just what you were talking about before with like everything, I wouldn't change anything. It's weird looking back. There's things that I'd change about what I've done. Right. And I think all of us can look at that and say, there's things I change about what I've done. But I wouldn't change any of my experiences because it makes me who I am. And I think it gives me a lot of perspective. That's why you tell kids, say, get off the couch, stop playing video games, go out and make some damn mistakes.
Make some fucking stories.
Yeah. Make some stories, make some mistakes, go out and fail. Failure and mistakes are a function of growth.
People are afraid to fail nowadays.
Yes. Go do that. There's just some things you can't.
Yeah.
Right. Don't F with fentanyl. Right? Don't make that mistake. But there are some other ones. Man, go out there and stay out a little. I'm going to get in trouble. But go out there and stay out a little too late. You know what I mean? Go out and ride your dirt bike a little too fast.
Yeah.
Right. That's living. Go make a couple mistakes.
Since it's Father's Day, isn't that the time that your son stays out a little too late and gets trouble? And he comes home and you rip his ass. And you're like, hey, you're grounded for a week. Your wife's there, right? I gotta set the tone. So your wife's there and you're like, you are grounded for a week. Don't ever do that again. And your wife's like, yeah, you're in trouble. And she walks into the room and you're like, I love you, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a little bit of fist bump to like, hey, if you're not man enough to make a mistake and deal with the consequences, then you will account to very little in this world. If you're not willing to challenge the system, if you're not willing to step out and do something and say, yeah, there's going to be a consequence to this, but you know what? I'm going to do it.
I'm doing it. Full send.
I had this conversation recently with my kids because I was talking about Superman because we were talking about, I better not. I need to drive.
Yeah, I'm good.
I was talking about courage and I was like, do you guys think Superman's courageous? And they were like, well, yeah. And I was like, well, he's not, right? He can't be hurt.
Right.
It doesn't take courage to do shit when you have nothing on the line.
There's no skin in the game.
There's no skin in the game. Yes. I have seen and I'm sure you have too, countless times where people that
or myself.
Well, now I feel like I should take a little more. Where people that like had no business, they are not suited for whatever they're about to do, and they have stepped up. And I'm talking about like civilians. Say it's like a DUI crash with injuries, like a felony DUI crash, and these like this skinny little nerdy old guy, right? He like detains this 300-pound freaking biker. Like he got no business doing that.
Yeah.
But he stepped up and did the right thing. That's fucking courage.
Right.
He's not suited for that task. He doesn't have the tools on the tool belt. He doesn't train. He doesn't do anything, but he's like, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to step up and do it.
And I'm willing to risk it
I'm willing to risk it. Yeah. That's freaking courage.
Yeah, you know, it's nutty. I just called a couple guys today. I couldn't get a hold of them, but I'll keep trying. I should just FaceTime them on here. Travis Aguirre, John Miller, Jeff Allen, all these guys just promoted to BC Battalion Chief.
Yeah.
Since you didn't freaking understand the first time, you damn cop.
Thank you.
Okay, all these guys promoted. I tried to call them today to congratulate them, and in the meantime, I got on FaceTime with my buddy Scott Abraham and Chris Snape today, both from County Fire, and these guys were on there. And Chris promoted to a captain. And, Abraham's also a captain, and it's funny because it hit me because when you're talking about this, like, being prepared for those positions and those types of things and having courage is that a lot of times it has to be something that is learned on the job. You don't hire somebody because like, man, you're really courageous. Like you can handle this. You learn this on the job. And it was funny because these guys are all taking positions now where I'm like, holy shit, like Travis Aguirre's a battalion chief. Like, dude, that's crazy to me because when I knew him, he was a firefighter. He wasn't even a medic. Right. Like he was the lowdown guy, and he was just he's actually a pretty good looking dude, unfortunately. But anyways, I know he always banked off of that. And, you know, Travis was just a fireman. And all these guys now have promoted up into these positions of, you know, authority within the fire department. I remember when I promoted at like 30, I think I was 30 and a half. It was in 2015. And I promoted up, and I remember getting on a fire engine, and all of a sudden we're taking off to a call. And I'm like, and I'm in my hometown, right? I'm looking around, I'm like, and I remember that the other guys that are all captains are Jay Demoff, Steve Lassiter, Wayne Thompson, all these guys that don't make sense to you, but they're all older dudes, right? They're all in their late 40s, early 50s. They've been around forever, and they've been in charge. And all of a sudden I'm in charge on an engine, and I'm like, what? What? Does the city of Yucca Valley and Joshua Tree know that I'm like the person that's going to pull up on scene and make a decision for them? Because if so, you know, like there might be an issue. And seeing all these guys take off, it's like, man, like they've learned through the process, and they're now stepping into new positions where they just have to be courageous. They have to make those decisions based off of something they don't know. They think they know by a book, but they're now going to have to be the person to make those decisions.
Not only that, they have to look like it. Everybody else out there needs to believe that they are confident in what they're doing, even if they don't know shit.
So good thing about me and Eric is that we're both small. I know I look smaller on here, but honestly, I'm a half an inch taller than Eric. So
they're not that small. They're not
just to give you an idea how the camera angle works. You know, Grant, my buddy, he's 6'4". He looks like Ivan. Yeah. I've told him they're the same person, just in different states.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Grant. So we would pull up on calls, and everybody, I remember we pulled up on a call once, and the guy's screaming at us, just like, you motherfuckers, just screaming at us. And he walks right past me and goes right to Grant, starts screaming at him because he's a big dude. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm the engineer. And I'm like, no, you're the captain right now.
Yeah, you're in charge, bitch. It's big dudes and bald guys. Like bald guys get that same attention on scene. It's weird. It's like, sorry, I know you're not bald, but you could join the club. We can do that. There's an instant authority.
I'm not bald.
There's an instant authority.
It's definitely getting there.
I take off my hat.
It's getting there.
I'm wearing my BC hat.
I'm reminded all the time, Daddy, you look bald. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. Your phone's gone for another week.
Should I just tell my chief, thank you for promoting me to chief? Deal with it.
There you go.
After retirement.
It is what it is.
Dude.
My phone's on silent. Whose was that?
That was my bad.
Yeah.
That was my fault.
I guess like part of my intention here, I don't know what my intention was, but I apologize if you're out there and you're traumatized from this talk, but I think this is good information. And like, if kids are listening, or young adults at least, like, man, go out there and like these experience, like we said, these experiences are traumatic, but like I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like I stood in Oakland, California, and watched that city burn, and like honored to have been there for that, right?
But what perspective that gives you now when you're actually talking intelligently about where you want to live, right? Where you want to be and the community you want to be a part of. Yeah. Because you've seen all that. And I wouldn't have half of that without the perspective that I've got from some of the things I did, some of the things I saw, some of the things that I went through. Yeah. And that's why I tell kids, whatever it is, like you're 18, 19 years old. If you were like me and you had no idea, which I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but if you were 18, 19 and you don't know, that's okay. Go out and see the world. Go out and get a job. Get up at 5 a.m., go bust your butt all day, and then go maybe make some poor decisions that night, not fentanyl, but make some poor decisions that night, right? But go out and live a little bit. Give yourself some perspective. So when you make that decision about where you want to raise your family, you can actually talk intelligently about it because you've lived places and you've done stuff.
Yeah. I disobeyed everything my dad told me because when I was young, he's like, man, don't get into construction. He's like, just like, don't do it. Don't do this. Don't do that. And I did all that. And I tell my son now, I'm like, man, here's all the things I did. And I shouldn't have done them, and I tell him the same thing. Don't do that. Like there's a better path, but in reality, he's probably going to do all that shit.
It's a really good idea. I'm going to go home and tell my son, hey, what you should do, you should definitely go get arrested.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. You should go get arrested. You should get a super low paying job. You know what I mean? Like you should definitely talk back to your mother and be like, I'll show you what this. Yeah. Straight. I do want to say something though, for all and we're probably talking to our base where everybody's got some stuff. I know what story you want me to tell, and I'm going to wait. I'm not ready for that one yet. But there are some tortured souls out there from these professions. Huge shout out to those that stayed with him through it.
100%.
I would not be where I am without the support system that I have at home and her ability to check me or call me out and say, hey, you're on a bit of a bad one. Because I think a lot of us, what I've come to realize is I don't think I'm unique in that when I go down that path, you get self-destructive really quick.
Yeah.
And you'll start to erode or try to destroy things that you've built. And if you got that partner that's going to be like, well, hold on.
Yeah.
You're a good dude. Because sometimes I think you just start torturing yourself and you're like, how good am I? Right? Like, what have I done? I failed at this. I failed at this, or I messed this up. I could have saved that person. Whatever that is, man, huge shout out to the spouses and those that, and that support system, whether it's a spouse or whether it's a parent. I'm extremely lucky that I have a good one,
dude.
Like good support system where they can call me out.
That goes a long way. And if you don't have that, rely on your brothers and sisters from that world. And honestly, I'll put it out there, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Like, I don't care if you live in Texas and you'll never buy a house in North Idaho. If you got some shit and you need to talk, like, shoot me an email, call me, man.
Yeah, same.
We're all the same. I'm
100%.
like happy to help out in that regard, because I think we've all just established that, like, we've been there mentally.
And we're not perfect, man. And
Nope.
There's plenty of these that I didn't handle the right way. And it's taken me a while to figure out how I can internalize and handle them the right way.
I would be interested. Yeah. Spouses are so huge. I'd be interested to see if we put all three of our spouses on here and they talked about the difficulty of having to deal with us. I mean, that'd be like a 4-hour podcast.
Honestly,
it would be super interesting.
And they probably all handle it in different ways. I know Kristen, my wife, she just tuned it out. She like pretty much shut out my job. She never asked about it. She didn't like, and I'd tell her stuff and if I needed to or not, but like, I worked graveyard 7 years straight, and it was like, she just was like, I just wrote it off in my mind. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Because if you as a spouse go down that road and start thinking about it, you're like, oh my God, like, what are they doing? Like, if you only freaking knew, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You'd be freaking out.
Right.
And I will say, like, not to give spousal advice or anything else, but for the guys especially, something that I remember, I'll tell a quick story about my wife, is that I used to come home and I'd be gone for 6 to 8 days, right? I'd miss birthdays. I'd miss all sorts of stupid shit. This is why I'm not a fireman anymore. But I would miss all this stuff, and I'd come home after, 6 or 8 days. My wife's been dealing with the kids, dude. They're running rampant. Like, the house is freaking destroyed. Like, it's just chaos. And I'd come home as a husband, as a doer, right? As a fixer. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the nail in the head video, but right. I'm here to fix things and make it right. So I'd come in a loving way. And I remember I'd come home, and my wife tells the story completely differently, right? She says it from her side.
Truth.
But I'd come home and I'd be like, hey, dude, this house looks like shit. My wife has got her ass kicked for 4 days, 6 days, 8 days. I'd come in and I'd start vacuuming. I'd start picking up. I'd start doing laundry. I'd start doing all this stuff. And I know you guys are like, dude, I'm helping my wife.
But you're not.
No, she would tell me, she'd be like, am I not good enough? And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, you got to come home and you got to fix everything. Like, I haven't been doing a good enough job.
Like, I'm destroyed everything while I was gone. Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. Like, I didn't realize that at all. Like, I'm coming home trying to help.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, for those men especially that are coming home to a law enforcement military wife, I don't care if you've been gone for 4 days or 4 months, you come home to your family, it is so important to live in the chaos. To just walk in and say everything is okay, and I'm okay with the way that this life is, because your family has lived and learned to live without you for X amount of days, for X amount of months. They've learned they've become accustomed to not having you around to make decisions, to clean things, to help things, to fix things. And now you're coming in and you're messing shit up. Okay?
You're
messing shit up.
Preaching to the choir, brother. Like, there are people out there hearing that, and they're like, holy shit, that's exactly what happened.
So
you're right. Because you think you're helping.
Right.
You think you're helping.
Right.
Come home and sit down with your wife and be like, hey, how was your 5 days of chaos while I was gone?
Yeah.
What do you need? How can I help? Hey, can we just spend some time together? You know what? Take your wife on a date before you start cleaning shit and fixing everything in the house.
Hey, babe,
go ahead.
No, babe, how many times have you regretted that 3 minutes of absolute ecstasy? since I've been gone? How many times have you regretted your decisions? Poor choice. You're welcome for my service.
That was literally the best marriage advice you could give anyone that is in that world.
Yeah.
100%, dude. Because I didn't understand. I'm like, I did the same things. And you know, I don't do much cleaning, to be honest with you, but my wife does that really well. But still, same, like going in and trying to like parent the kids or do this. And it's like, it's exactly the same thing, dude. Same reaction too. And I was wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, here, let me drop a little something. I'm guilty of this big time. I get accused of mansplaining with frequency.
What?
Okay? No.
Say that clearly so we can hear it.
Mansplaining. You've never heard that before? I get, and 100% guilt. Like, just shock everybody. I'm a talker. Okay. All right. So when my wife's dropping stuff on me, I'm like, what mode do you go into? When she's like, oh, this happened. I'm gonna
fix that.
I'm gonna fix that shit. Yeah, fix it, Felix. Right, you're here I come. I'm gonna mansplain the shit out of some stuff. I'm gonna fix all your problems. Guess what it doesn't do? Doesn't fix a goddamn thing. Sometimes just shut up. Be like, hey, I'm sorry, babe. I know it's tough, especially with kids going crazy. Like I can only imagine. You know what I mean? But I do that all the time. All the time. Doesn't help. Still do it. And she'll just give me the look and be like, I'm mansplaining right now. Hey, another tip. Don't accuse them of whoa mansplaining because you think it's pithy and cute. All right, don't do that.
Yeah, that's
all right,
probably
don't
a
think
bad
it's a
idea.
good retort.
These are good lessons
Yeah,
to learn from
good
you
lessons.
here.
Don't do it.
Whoa, mansplaining.
Yes. Hey, babe, you're whoa mansplaining this to me. Oh, it sounds funny.
It does. Probably not to her.
Yes, in my mind, it's
Dying right now.
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, so I had something to say. I can't remember. Right
Well,
now.
that was
Sorry,
just gold.
Fucking
Thank
gold.
you.
Don't do it, Merrick. What not to do? What,
Dude,
not
that
to
is, yeah, that is awesome. But anyways, there's some marriage advice for everybody.
Yeah, because we deal with a lot of young. Obviously, you do young cops. We get a lot of our people moving up here, like lateraling to the departments up here. I think we're probably the number one recruiter for all the departments up here. Our real estate team, just by the way.
Yeah.
That's good advice for them. So if you're out there and you guys are listening, like, and you're young, you're like a year into your marriage and you're a cop, like, freaking pay attention.
Hey, there's a really good dude that listens to this podcast that I've been in conversation with for the last week. Dropped his app today. Super pumped for him.
I'm not going to say anything, but is he from CO?
It might
That
be.
a boy. I like it.
Super jacked to get
He's
him on
watching.
pictures. Yes.
Yeah, we want you up here.
On a side note, like, I think we are
it.
very responsible for stacking the police departments with solid people up here.
Yeah.
Which is great for the community, by the way. If you are like a hard charger, a good human being and want to do police work and affect your community in a positive way, come on up.
Dude, you want to hunt felons and like be creative about continuing to push crime out, man.
Well, I love the fact, as real estate agents, you typically only have some things to offer, right?
Yeah.
Hey, how can I help you get into a house? Hey, would you like a comp? Would you like me to post draft sale? But the truth is I love the fact, like the guy you're talking about, the fact that he called us about moving up here. And then we were to say, hey, so what are you looking to do? Well, I'm looking to transfer. You know what? Let us put you in contact with Eric real quick.
I think
let's have you talk to Eric, right? And then all of a sudden,
lining out what he does, and you're like, hold on, because our careers are quite similar.
The email he sent me the other day was just like, dude, Eric has me pumped about Coeur d'Alene PD.
Yeah.
And I'm psyched and I'm putting in an app. Like, that was cool.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was cool because you know what? The fuck selling houses. Who cares? Like the fact that you can see people come up here and do a freaking badass job and somebody that's willing to do the job that we don't do anymore, right? You still do it, but the job that we don't do anymore, somebody to come up here and to fill the gap, to be willing to do those things. It's a good dude.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Yeah.
That is worth every bit.
Well, you guys are truly still impacting the community because obviously the following for this podcast is a lot of first responders and a lot of retirement. And even when you're retired, that's still bringing really good people up here. Mm-hmm. What I've noticed is we are the number one retirement place for military and first responders in the country per capita.
Yeah.
If we ever really 100%. I keep saying that.
Yeah.
So
yes, it's on the internet. It's totally true.
If we ever defund the police, this place will be the safest area. I'm like, all right, let's defund them. I mean, I'm sorry, Lee, but I mean, if everybody leaves,
criminals would be way less comfortable. I think we're the ones keeping the wolves at bay.
All that's left is to get me and Dave deputized. I'm just saying.
Asked him, no. I asked him today. I asked you for an assignment. What was it?
Yes, you wanted to go do, God, what was it?
PIO?
Traffic.
Recruitment?
Traffic. Yeah, I know you wanted to run traffic. You just wanted to sit there and run
just
traffic.
Put me and Dave.
Hold on.
Put me and Dave in a patrol together.
I don't want to be
shit, bro.
Jeez.
I don't traffic guy, but I told you I'm so tired of driving to work in the morning.
I got this.
Because I come to work in the morning because I want to kick ass and I want to do good.
Yeah.
And I'm driving to work in the morning, and to see these people that I can 100% say that if I was a cop, I could get you for a misdemeanor reckless driving, right? And to see these assholes drive down the road, I'm like, God dang it, give me an unmarked patrol car, sheriff, PD, I don't care what it is. I will go back to work, and I would gladly
How many of them are
take
real
these
estate
people
agents?
to jail. I don't care. I don't care. Well, that kind of decreases the competition. So that might be a pretext stop.
They don't want me and Dave to get bad. Let me tell you that.
But I will tell you what, these people that are assholes that drive like idiots down here, I would love to be in an unmarked car and just get them and just be like, you know what? Hey, I could just give you a misdemeanor citation, but I'm going to take you to jail.
Yeah.
We're going to go to jail because you're a piece of shit and we don't want you here.
I can't tell you how many times I've reached up for the lights that are not on my dashboard. Like something crazy happens. I'm like, and my kid's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I was gonna change the radio, actually. Just changing the radio.
Are you trying to get us deputized?
I am. Like, I legit want to.
I hope Norris is not listening to this.
I haven't hit him with it yet, but like I have this whole plan as far as like we're like number one recruiters, dude. Like, it's fine.
I already sent Norris he was like, hey, I'll recruit you guys today. And I'm like, I actually still have my special deputy card that you gave me.
Non-expired.
I still have it. Yeah, it doesn't say expired. It's just a special deputy. It's a terrible photo, by the way.
My wife got so mad at me when I told her that this plan of me getting deputized. She's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's in my blood and I miss it. I don't want to go work patrol all the time, but I want the badge. And like, if shit goes down, like, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's stupid. You got to take care of your family. I'm like, yes. But one, Hudson's old enough now. He can run a gun. He can handle business. And two, like, if I'm not willing to step up, then why should I expect anybody else to?
Right.
It's funny. I think there's a part of me that might just be a little bit different still, like caught up in my earlier years, because I still catch myself. Tell me if any of you do this. I'm in a marked patrol car on patrol, right? And I'll look in my rearview mirror and see a cop car behind me because I'll be like, shit, it's the cops. Like my first like internal react. I still catch myself as like, dickhead, you're not only a cop, you're the sergeant. Like, but I still see a cop car. I'm like, shit. Oh, all right.
Am I doing anything wrong?
Okay.
But get my seatbelt on real fast. I always wear it. It's policy. I always have a seatbelt.
Did I tell you I'm getting pulled over by ASP? I didn't know the guy.
Really?
He stopped me and I'm like, God dang it. And he stopped me and he's like, hey, license, registration, proof of insurance. I go, you know what? Honestly, I said my license is in the middle console with my firearm. So I said, I don't want to reach in there. I don't feel comfortable. And he's like, okay, you might give me your information. I go, yeah. I go, it's a male out of Idaho, last of Faller, Frank, Adam, Lincoln, Edward, Robert, first of David, middle Michael, common, 7-9 of 83. He's like, God dang it. Who do you work for? I go, I don't work for anybody anymore. Yeah. I go, I'm just giving you the information. He's like, have a good day. And I'm like, God, thank you.
That is not accurate. Dave's like, hey, by the way, are you looking for a house? Where are you looking? Where are you
moving, dude?
That is really creative. I've never thought of doing it that way.
It's phenomenal.
That's like,
because I don't want to reach for my firearm. I don't think that's a good idea.
That one, like, okay, but the whole phonetically spelling out your name,
absolutely
genius.
Not kidding. We are not going to shameless business plug here. The dude is a straight up hustler. Like, one, you get one of us, you get all three of us. Dave is like the closer and the hustler 100%. And the negotiator. He's 100%.
Dude, can we just plug that right now?
It's ridiculous.
Look, if you're watching this and you wonder what we do, like, we all do real estate now. And I would love to say that we all were still serving in some capacity and as a first responder. Eric's the only one doing that. But the truth is that we have a passion for people that are first responders and that are military and veterans. And we go out of the way to make sure that we take care of you. I mean, if we weren't good at our job, at what we did, then we wouldn't be successful in this business, but we are. And that's something that we really try to do. And honestly, so when I met Seth, I'm just going to go into the story right now. When I met Seth, we did a deal together, and they were both law enforcement. You had a Cooney County guy, I had a Coeur d'Alene PD guy, and I sold the house to you. And I called Seth, and I'm like, dude, that deal was really smooth. Like, you were great at communicating. That was awesome. Then he had this random idea to move to Alabama, which you're an idiot, but you stayed here.
I was in Alabama.
And later on, we decided to join forces and make this group your North Idaho agent. And I told him, I said, hey, dude, I got this guy that's at PD, and I go, he doesn't know shit about real estate, dude. He doesn't know anything about real estate.
A little more now. I know a lot about trailers now.
You know a lot about trailers.
I know a lot.
Yeah, we gave him some really good listings.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, I got this guy, Eric. And I'm like, he was my FTO. And I'm like, the guy's one of the top law enforcement officers around here. He's just phenomenal. He did a great job. He's one of those people that I would trust, right? And I told you about that. And I'm like, dude, this guy will bring value. Even if he doesn't know about real estate, he will learn about it and he will have the the desire to be good at real estate. So that's what we've kind of formed. Like we got active duty military, active duty law enforcement, former fire, former military, former California Highway Patrol ticket writer. So
Not very good at that, to be honest.
But the truth is that that's our passion. Like we want to work with families and with people that are military veterans, first responders. We'll work with anybody, but that's the type of integrity that we try to have. We try to have people that are, that understand that we're going to go the extra mile for them, that we're going to work as well as we can, even if it means that we have to do something that is against, financially not in our best interest, or at least in the client's best interest, that we're going to do it. And that we're going to look out for people. And I think that's really important. And I want people to know who we are, and the fact that, that life experiences and everything else translate into something that we can do a really good job in another area, because we competed for our jobs.
Yeah.
You didn't know how to be a cop. You didn't know how to be a cop. You didn't know how to work on a nuclear submarine. You didn't know how to do those things, but you had the mentality where you could go to work and you could be trainable and you could do a good job, and you were aggressive. And you know what, in this job, in the same thing, like we do our very best to be aggressive and to be top of the market and do good jobs. That is one thing. Like if you're military, law enforcement, first responder, anything else, like we want to connect with you regardless of whether or not you want to move here, or whether you have questions about this area, or whether you just want to talk with us. Like come talk with us. Yeah. We're 100% down for that.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have said anything better myself, dude. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's what's cool about this. We get a lot of you guys that call us and reach out, and you're just talking about moving up here potentially. Sometimes that turns into a home purchase. If so, badass. But if not that big of a deal. I think we take that personally. We take personal ownership of each of those interactions.
Yeah.
So there will be like a vigorous pursuit of representing you to the point of sometimes people not always complimentary calling Dave a bulldog. That works out in your benefit.
He's talking about other agents that have to deal with us. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes. It's fun. It's a good time.
Well, gentlemen, it's been an hour and a half on that note.
My gosh.
I know.
Happy
you get on
Father's
time.
Day.
It's
Truly.
5:47, so we got you out in time. I don't know what about your time.
I have softball with a bunch of guys from Kootenai County Sheriff right now.
Beautiful. But
before we go, honestly, Day, thank you. I don't know how many of you are left out there, but I know I was in the ambulance one day with a guy that, he was missing a leg, and I asked him, when did you lose that leg? And I remember this. He said, February 23rd, 1945.
Shit.
The reason I remember that is because that was my dad's birthday. And I'm like, you lost your leg protecting this country and building this country on the day that my dad on the day that my dad was born. The only reason he was able to be born in a hospital and taken care of, and that I'm able to survive, is because of what you did in the military. So today, for June 6th, 2023, we just want to say thank you to everybody. 2024, sorry.
I almost corrected you.
Yep, thank you.
I didn't want to ruin the moment, though.
No, that's fine. No,
Okay.
We're in the moment. For any of you that were in D-Day, if there's any of you listening, or any of you that had somebody that was in that time, or around, and by the way, February 23rd, 1945 was the day that they raised the flag, that symbolic day where they
Iwo
raised
Jima?
the flag
Yeah.
on Iwo Jima.
Oh.
That was the day my father was born. And that was the day that I had a father to where I could be born, to where I could live the way that I do. So thank you to every single veteran and everybody that's in military, that served for us, that's listening to this. Obviously you made it home to your families, but so many didn't. And I just visited Arlington National
Cemetery.
And it was breathtaking. So for every one of you that has served, every one of you that has been a first responder, that has served your communities, we appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Dang. Yeah. I hope you guys got something out of this. My intent today was to talk about things we talked about and kind of share some of these stories. And I think they're important to hear. And like I told you earlier, I'm a selfish collector of stories. So thank you.
No, it was awesome.
They may end up in a poem someday.
And I'll say this, if you guys, when you talk about D-Day and vets and a lot of that, if you're kind of like me and you get a little bit of that sick feeling in your stomach because you're concerned about where the country's going, if this venture with you guys and this podcast and the conversations we've had tells me anything, there's a lot more out there like us.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
Appreciate those guys that were real, true Americans and made this country what it is. Still those of us out there.
Hell yeah. Keep fighting the good fight. Thank you all. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Catch you next time.